Let's Talk Southwest Florida with Kevin Anderson, our mayor, 62nd mayor of Fort Myers, Florida. We've known each other for a long time now.
Yeah, longer than we probably want to admit.
Yeah. I mean, you were my resource officer at
Fort
Fort Myers High. Kept us out of a lot of trouble. And that's when Fort Myers was a lot smaller.
Yeah.
It's changed a lot today.
You know, what's really funny is people tell me I should write a book.
Yeah.
And I smile and tell them, why? I'm making more money not writing a book.
Yeah. It's great. So, Mayor, you started out with the police department for 24 years, which is incredible. Something I learned today, though, you also served our country.
Yes.
U.S. Army.
Yes.
What'd you do in the Army?
Military police.
Yeah, did you really?
Yeah, you know, I came from a family where college wasn't an option.
Yeah.
Unless you could find a way to make it work.
Yeah. So
I chose, to go in the military because I wanted to be a police officer, which is an interesting story how that happened. But I couldn't do it for another 3 years because you got to be 21. I was 18. So I went in and did 3 years as a military policeman, which set the foundation for me to move to Fort Myers and join the police department here.
I saw that. And you did that at the University of Louisville Southern Police Institute?
Yeah, that was something I did later on in my career. As I was nearing the top of the ladder and had aspiration maybe to be the chief one day, I took one of those command level police courses, which meant leaving Fort Myers and my family for 3 months to go to this University of Louisville and take this class.
Louisville.
Louisville.
And then from being with the Fort Myers Police Department for 24 years, then you took a job at Chico's. What'd you do at Chico's? I
started off running security.
Yeah.
And then got promoted into headquarters operations.
Yeah.
So I did like administrative services for the campus. That campus is, 30 some acres.
Yeah.
Had 10 different buildings. And so I was part of the team that provided the services for the people working on the campus.
Yeah. But Chico's at that time started in Sanibel.
Right.
By the Grolnick family.
Mm-hmm.
And their home base was here in Fort Myers.
Right.
And that's where you were right off Metro.
Right.
I remember going there and seeing you one day or a couple days, but very much in the community.
Yes.
And, security, one thing, but community. And all throughout your life, you've been serving the community. And that's what's so special about you. And that's where I first met you, is you were serving kids. You were making sure that they, stayed safe and stay out of trouble and all that.
I look back.
You were a leader. You were also, we looked up to you.
And I look back in how I got to where I am today. And as you know, I lost my mother at a very young age.
Yeah.
And
Age 4,
yeah. And we didn't really have the structure in the family that a normal family would have. Then when my dad remarried, it got even less involvement on his part.
Yeah.
So I look back, and all I could figure out is that I was blessed with a servant's heart.
Yeah.
Never realized that until I was older, and I'm very thankful for that.
Yeah. Which I think is tough for people to, not for people to understand, but you're in politics, you're a mayor. So you have to make decisions, and you have to make decisions for what's best for our city.
Yeah, it's not a popularity contest.
Yeah, and people are looking at that. But again, you're just trying to serve the community. What's best for the community?
I was sworn in on a Monday at 4:30, and Tuesday morning at 7:30, I asked for the city manager's resignation.
Yeah.
Very unpopular thing.
I remember
within the city council and the business community. But it was absolutely the right thing to do for the city. We ran into a water issue where literally we had condo buildings with no water pressure on the third, fourth, and floors higher. If we did not attack that problem as aggressively as we did, this city would be in some serious trouble right now.
Yeah.
We'd probably be under some type of state control and on the verge of bankruptcy.
Yeah.
But the new city manager is very business-minded, very level-headed. He's a professional. He's well-experienced, and he hit this problem head on.
Yeah.
This is a problem that didn't happen overnight. It happened over years of it not being addressed.
Yeah. That's the thing with, I mean, I don't want to say sitting on the sideline, but a lot of times I always say it now where, people are sitting on the sideline screaming. And that's what a lot of people do. And that's what I've said to it, because I can only do so much. And like you, I've got, a couple things that I'm very passionate about.
Sure.
And I do them 110%.
You could do a lot of things mediocre.
Yeah.
Or you could do a few things very well.
Yeah.
Yes.
And there's a lot of people that are screaming and are shouting, especially when it gets to politics, which we're not going to get into politics too much here, but people scream from the sidelines. I always say, get on the field and start playing the game. And let's play together.
And that's a good point. And when I ran for council, I was on the outside looking in. And I had all these thoughts about things I would love to see happen. Then when you get inside, you realize there's a lot of moving pieces and parts. There's a lot of regulations, statutes, ordinances that require you to do certain things or prevent you from doing other things. So it's not that easy.
Yeah.
I used to say if business moved at the speed of government, we'd all be bankrupt.
Yeah.
But now I realize why government has to move at a very calculated pace. We're making big decisions that will affect you, your children, your grandchildren.
Yeah.
Long-lasting decisions. We need to make sure we do our due diligence and make the right decision.
Yeah, that's why we need to do this now. Yeah. No. There's a process.
And we need to make sure that today's solution doesn't become tomorrow's problem.
Yeah.
We see that all too often.
You've been here all your life and you've watched so much change. And I think Fort Myers has, I think there's a bright future for us, very much so.
Mike, we are on the cusp of some really great things. If we as elected officials can make sure we stay in our lane, and our lane is setting policy and approving a budget. Our lane is not sticking our fingers into the day-to-day operations of the city. That's why we have staff.
Yeah.
And if we as a group, an elected body, can do that and let staff take our policy and put it into action, we can see some really great things happen.
You started married 2020.
Yes.
Not much going on. I mean, really, it was a pretty easy time. I mean, we just had COVID.
Right.
I mean, pretty easy time.
I was wondering where you were going with that.
I mean, then, 2022, pretty easy
that
time.
little storm.
A little storm. Yeah.
It's funny. When the sun came up after the storm.
Yeah.
And I said to the city manager, Marty, we have an opportunity.
Yeah.
And he kind of looked at me and I said, we have an opportunity to show the people of Fort Myers, our citizens, that they have strong leadership in place that will lead them out of this disaster. Yeah. And that's exactly what we did.
The term of mayor, is that 2 years?
4 years.
4 years.
Now, keep in mind, I was elected midterm.
Yeah.
So I only had 2 years before I had to run for re-election.
Okay. So when are you up for re-election?
November 2026.
Okay. Do you think you're going to stay on?
That's always an interesting question.
I know you're going to get asked that all the time.
Yeah. Several months ago, I would have told you I'm really not sure, and there's a lot of reasons. I thoroughly enjoy what I'm doing, and I love the direction the city's going. We've had so many good things happen over the last 4 years. But as you know, I became a grandfather.
Yeah.
They live 3.5 hours away.
Daughter Kayla.
Yes.
Wife Krista.
Yes.
Of how many years now?
37, going on 38.
And I know your wife.
Yes.
Beautiful person.
For a long time.
Yeah.
And so when this term is up, I'll be 68 years old. If I do another term, I'll be 72. And so I factor that in with having that grandchild 3.5 hours away. But I also factor in that I love what I'm doing. I'm committed to this city. There's a lot of good things happening and a lot of things I want to see get done.
I'd like to see you stay another term because I think, again, when you have a leader, to find that person or help that person that's coming up next. I mean, it's your responsibility to help do that too.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's where a lot of times we fail. We either base that decision on, well, we like this person.
Yeah.
And we're not objective in saying, well, who will be a strong leader? Who will make the right decisions? Who will stand strong and take the hits when they come? And, you know, one of my 3 things that I pushed when I was running is that I would be accessible. And I am. If you call my office, you're going to get a call back from me.
Yeah.
You send me an email, I'm going to respond to it. I'll be honest, there's about 5 people out there who I just will not waste my time with.
Yeah.
And I will not invite them into City Hall because of the safety of the people in City Hall. They're out there.
Yeah.
But like I said, return phone calls, emails, text messages, which leads into, I also promise to be responsive. Not only can you get in touch with me, but I'm going to get back in touch with you, and then to be transparent.
Yeah.
And I think I've been very transparent. Everything from when I caught COVID in March of 2020, the end of March. I didn't, the city manager at that time saying, okay, we're going to keep this quiet. No.
Yeah.
People need to realize this is a serious event in our lives. Take it seriously. Take the precaution that's necessary. Protect yourselves.
Yeah.
I had high fever the last 2 nights. Very high, but my doctor friend of mine was saying, the fever is the body fighting that infection. So, while you get concerned, understand this, you're getting toward the end of this because the fever is going to knock it out.
Yeah.
And it did. I woke up that next morning and was fine.
You should be able to count on the people that work within and the people that you've surrounded yourself with. If not, then we're in trouble.
Yeah. And that's why I said, I have so much confidence in our city manager. My wife and I just went to England and Ireland for 11 days.
Sorry about Florida State on that one. Good game, though, Georgia Tech.
Yeah, someone said, hey, why'd you go to Ireland? I said, well, we went to the Georgia Tech football game in Dublin. It was a little bit disappointing, but the first thing I said, 2 things I said to Kristen. The sun's going to come up tomorrow.
Yeah.
There'll be another game.
Yeah.
There'll be another season, right? And the other thing is, really a bad game in Dublin is still worth more than a good game in Tallahassee.
Oh, yeah.
Because, now we had the time to continue our explore.
And you can't really count that first game. It is part of the schedule, but first game is...
Yeah, and there was so much hype.
Yeah.
And, I'm a big Florida State fan. And I told someone, I said, if I could talk to Coach Norvell, I would just tell him 2 things he needs to work on: offense and defense. If he can get those under control, we're not going
to start talking football here, but we do have 3 great teams in this state, and that's Florida State, and Miami. We've got other teams too. There's some great teams outside them, but the main rivalries have always been those 3. And
exactly,
Miami just beat Florida.
Yeah,
And so the Canes look pretty good. But who knows?
Yeah, don't discount USF.
Yeah,
or UCF. It may take 5-10 years. I don't know, but they're going to wind up being powerhouses within the state as well.
Yeah. That one thing that I've always really liked about you is you're just such a nice guy, and you're just such a positive guy. I've never really heard of anything negative coming out of your life or your mouth, and I've known you. For
trust
a long
me, it's
time.
there.
It's there with all of us.
Sure,
we have our bad days and our good days, but you're a very positive man and a really good representative as a father, as a husband, and as our mayor, and as a friend.
Well, thank you. And I've just always tried to take an attitude of being optimistic. That if you walk around through life saying, woe is me, and this is bad, and this is bad, no, look at the good and try to build upon the good. And when the new city manager took office, and I would go storming into his office some days and say, Marty, we got a problem. And I got the same response every time. He'd listen to me and say, here's what we need to do.
Yeah.
And then I changed. And I go in there, not as angry. I get very upset when things don't go right.
Yeah.
When people don't do their jobs.
Yeah.
Especially public servants.
Yeah.
So then I started going in there, not as upset, and I say, Marty, we got a challenge.
Yeah.
Now.
So you reframed it.
now I go in there with a smile.
Yeah.
Marty, we have an opportunity. And that's the way I look at it. Sure, it's a problem, but it's an opportunity to fix that problem.
Yeah. That's why I'd like to see you stay on for another term if we can. And I'll always support you. You know that. Not only as a politician, but as a man and husband and
again,
friend
thanks,
and all that.
And I, I get a lot of that feedback from the public.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that when the decision time comes, and I can almost say with 100% certainty it's going to come.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go for another term. But when that time comes, I feel confident that people of the city will support me because, like I said, I've been accessible, been responsive, been transparent, very responsive to people because I just believe at this level, this is where government's closest to the people.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm in Publix shopping with the constituents.
Yeah.
I'm in church with them. I'm in, in restaurants, wherever.
Yeah.
And I loved it to interact with them. And people seem surprised when they say, "You're the mayor," and I stop and say, "Yeah, how you doing?"
Yeah.
And talk with them, and they say, "Wow." But that's the way it should be.
That's the way it should be.
And, of course, I got a little, as you know, I got a little sense of humor. And a lot of times I'm wearing a shirt. I have to go to a Labor Day picnic. But people will say, "Oh, you're the mayor?" And I'll smile and say, "No, I got this shirt at Goodwill for $2. It's great. They let me in places for free. People buy me drinks. I mean, best $2 I ever spent." They love it. They laugh.
You actually, I don't know if I should say this, but you actually live downtown.
Yes.
I mean,
the heart of downtown.
That's being in the community. I mean, you were always in the community. You were off McGregor, and then that's Ward 4, right?
Yes.
And that's where you served first.
Yes.
On city council. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Chris and I love it downtown.
Yeah.
We can walk out the door and go to any number of places.
Yeah.
I walk to work most days. Almost every morning I'll get out and do a 3-mile walk zigzagging through downtown. And I've added the parking garage to it, which is almost a mile to the top and back.
Yeah.
And it gives you that incline. So while I'm out and about, I'm running into people even in the morning.
Yeah.
And it's really great to interact. And I'll tell you, the thing I really love, I get out there before the sun comes up. And I get to see the city at its worst, so to speak.
Yeah.
The litter and everything.
Yeah.
And I always gauge how the night before must have been based on the amount of litter I see.
Yeah.
It's a crazy way to do it. But
Yeah.
I figure if people are downtown spending, if the litter's there, that meant they were down there spending money.
Yeah.
Yeah. But by the time I get home, get upstairs, get cleaned up, get dressed, and I walk to City Hall, it's almost spotless.
Yeah.
I mean, we have some.
I love our downtown.
Yeah.
I really do. And I think that the future for downtown is only brighter. I mean, what's going on with the
Yacht Basin?
The yacht basin. What's the story on that? Because that's a huge project.
Yes. Waiting on permits.
Okay.
On the government level, Corps of Army Engineers. You're looking at a $30 to $40 million investment that's going to occur there once the permits come out. It's really going to make a difference for that end of downtown. You're going to see some great development.
And it's not just a marina.
No. There's going to be shops and, and
that's going to be
restaurants.
huge.
Yes.
What about green space?
Oh, I'm glad you brought that up. We are going to put out on the ballot in November a referendum and ask the people to approve a $75 million general obligation bond that will go strictly toward parks and green space. So this will give us an opportunity to bring some of the older parks up. They've been neglected.
Yeah.
2008, that period of time really hurt. And we haven't caught up from it yet.
Yeah.
And this will help us catch up. So not only will we improve the existing parks, but we're going to add additional parks. And there's a formula out there based on your square miles and your population as to how much green space you should have. We're at about 37% of where we should be. So our goal with this money is it's going to put us over the 50% mark.
So does that bring more parks to downtown? I mean, we've got the park along the river, but
yeah.
what about within the downtown, really? There's nothing really in downtown.
There are some small ones. There is
Yeah.
a pocket park coming to First Street.
Okay.
Where that one building had been torn down several years ago, and that's going to become a neat little pocket
Yeah.
park. You know, we actually got money from the state. We're trying to purchase the land on West First Street to expand Centennial Park.
Okay.
Not only will it expand Centennial Park, but it will allow some other things to happen. One, it will allow no development to happen.
Yeah.
Okay. Right now, it's slated to have, you know, big towers put down.
Yeah.
But it will also allow us to move the Fish and Wildlife Commission building off of Edwards Drive so that that can become part of the expansion of the yacht basin. We're going to move it over to that piece of land. Hopefully what we're going to be able to do is incorporate the Edison Sailing Center into the building so they have a place. And that's a great program where they're teaching kids how to sail. And, you know, anything you teach kids that involves discipline is usually a good thing.
Yeah.
And being a sailor, you got to be disciplined.
I mean, my daughters,
Right.
I mean, they grew up swimming
Yes.
at the park in at De Leon.
Mm-hmm.
Coach Mack in the pool,
Yeah. Yeah.
Swim Florida, and then the baseball and all that goes on there. That keeps kids out of trouble. And like you said, when you have leaders like Coach Mack too, it's been into it forever. He helps those kids, you know, grow. Also, we need more of that.
I recently had the honor to attend a Swim Florida event,
Yeah.
luncheon,
Yeah.
and present Coach Mack with a proclamation declaring that day Coach Mack Day.
That's great.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah,
a great
well,
man.
He's done a lot
Yeah.
to help youth out.
I've been doing this now 32 years and been out there in the community. I'm 57 yesterday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
How'd you get to be older than me?
We won't get it's just a number.
It is.
And you and I know that best. It's just a number.
Yeah.
And however old we are, it's just a number. And the reason why I always say that is because I lost my dad at 10 years old in a car accident. You lost your mom at 4 years old.
Yeah.
And that's not going to hold you back. I mean, it's and that's because of the leader that you are today. And some of those things that went on in your life, whether it's the death of your mom and just your upbringing, that helped shape you to the man that you are today. Doesn't mean that you don't have things that you need to work on, or you're perfect, or you're not perfect, or what.
We all need things. We all have things we need to work on. I mean, that's just human nature.
Yeah. That's why I like, you know, talking to people like this, because you're open. You're more vulnerable. You're more open to people. And I like that, because I always say to people that some people think that that's a weakness by being open and vulnerable. And I keep on saying, I think I'm getting more open and more vulnerable as I get older. And people are like, but, you know, it's just who I am.
You know what a sign of weakness is? More so of bottling up your emotions. And not being willing to yes.
Yeah, to not show your emotions, even if you cry.
Right.
Because those tears sometimes are tears of joy, tears of just, you know, hey, I've made it, things like that.
Yeah.
And those are things that I grew up with that you struggled with. And what I was getting to earlier is, as far as mentors, who do you have as mentors? That's where I could look at you as a mentor, because you have mentored me and our friends, many people, as we were growing up. And that hopefully those are the people like you are one reason why where we're at today. And when you get at I don't want to say at the top of my profession, because I'm not, you know, I'm always still trying to grow, but it's hard to find mentors.
I grew up, you know, very, very different than a lot of people in that, you know, it was my dad trying to raise us. He was an electrician. You know, money was tight. And then when he remarried, that changed the dynamics. Then when I was 15, 16-ish, I got introduced to the police explorers. Now, to that point, I did not like police. Yeah. I was anti-police. It was the 70s. We're coming off Vietnam, the anti-establishment, all of that stuff. And I met a police sergeant at that first meeting, and I thought, wow, here's a guy. It's not about the power of the badge or anything. It's about serving his community. Yeah. And so over the years, in my early years in law enforcement, he was a mentor. When I was at Fort Myers High School, believe it or not, the security guy there Chief Parker.
Yeah.
He was a retired police chief from two different locations out west, and he served as a mentor. Larry Hart.
Yeah.
You know, Larry and I went to the police
Good man.
academy
I like
together.
Larry.
Yeah. So there have been people who have mentored in and out.
Yeah. And I've had that too. It just,
But it's hard to find a long term.
yeah.
And that's why, you know, I'm a mentor with the Take Stock in Children, or students Take Stock in Children.
That's the other
students program,
organization, nonprofit that you're involved with.
Yeah, that's that in Premier Mobile Health. But the Take Stock in students, these are kids who normally would not have an opportunity to go to college. And so early on in high school, you get them to commit, to work hard, to get good grades, to stay out of trouble, no interaction with the law. And if they do this and graduate with, I believe they have to have a certain GPA, they get a 4-year ride to Florida Public University.
That's great.
Yeah. And so most of these kids are going to be first generation college graduates for their family.
Yeah.
So it's a great investment.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it this time because last time I got hooked up with a young man in the end of his junior year. Now I have someone in the early stages of his high school, so I'm going to be with him for at least 3 years, hoping to guide him through high school and guide him toward college. And for both of them, it doesn't have to end when they graduate. If they want to stay in touch, you know, even to this day, I have police officers who will call me.
Yeah.
And say, hey, you know, I'm struggling with this. And I try to do my best to give them an answer or the right guidance. So we all need someone.
Yeah.
Even if it's just someone that you feel comfortable that you can open up to, talk to.
Yeah. Well, I think you're a pretty open guy, and I am too. So you know me, I'm pretty open.
Yeah.
So,
you know, you bottle things up, carry it around. It's like a grudge.
yeah.
You're not hurting the person you have the grudge against.
Yeah.
They could care.
Do you think
you're hurting yourself?
So now you're involved with Valerie's House. You were just brought onto the board, and we're so happy and proud to have you. Not the mayor, but the person, Kevin Anderson. That's what we saw in you because you have a personal experience because your mom passed away at 4 years old. And my dad died at 10.
Right.
And we grew up, we didn't really, I don't know about you, but we didn't talk about that. We didn't talk about that at all. We didn't talk about, and you know, I was the youngest. So I had my older brother, Darren, who you know, and then my sister, Kim, who a lot of people don't even know I have a sister. I mean, a lot of people do now, but they didn't for the long, because we were different ages. But, you know, my brother was, he had to serve as kind of the new father figure, even though there were other people.
He was how old?
Darren's probably 4 or 5 years older than me.
Okay. So still at a young age,
Yeah.
he had a lot of responsibility thrust upon him.
Yeah.
And that maybe played into the man he is today.
Yeah.
And why he is successful.
Yeah.
Because, you know, we've had to learn to take on things that people our age shouldn't have to.
Yeah.
You know, I look at one of my first evaluations at Chico's, and my boss said, you know, the thing I like about you is no matter what I throw at you, you handle it.
Yeah.
And I said, that came from my previous job.
Yeah.
You know, you didn't come in the morning and say, oh, wow, we're going to have a bank robbery at 11.
Yeah.
Oh, my God, and look, there's going to be a bad wreck at the same time, you know. Yeah, you have to respond to the chaos, and you have to turn that chaos into control. So, you know, when you're young like that, and all of a sudden you've got responsibilities of an adult, I think it does help build character.
Yeah. Yeah, when I was young, I mean, again, my brother, and he's still this way to me today. I mean, I did a video the other day. It talked about when I was growing up, my mom, and you know, before she met my stepfather, and my real dad, and then someone in between, and you know, my brother was like, "Take that video down. Take that video. Why would you do that? Why would you say that? You act like we were in the poorhouse. You act like, you know, our mother had 3 or 4 jobs." And I said, well, Darren, she did have multiple jobs, and we weren't so, you know, money was a lot different before we met our stepfather, who spoiled us, who had his own kids too, that I'm friends with. And actually, you probably know this. I mean, my stepfather, his daughter is married to one of our ex-mayors.
Yes. Yes.
You know, so it's small town,
Yes.
you know, but
Bigger it gets, the smaller it stays.
yeah, it seems like it too. But you know, still to this day, it's like, you know, shut up.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of thing. And that's kind of what I dealt with growing up. Not my brother's a great man. He's one of my
No.
heroes. I love him. But he's, you know, I think that's, and we all grow up when those things happen to us, like those trauma events, those tragic events, it shapes us and it shapes everybody different. I mean, he was older than me. My sister's older than me. So, you know, what I feel, how I feel, what I went through is so different than what he went through. And I don't know what that feeling is with him.
You know, as a youngster, I thought my dad was an extremely hard man.
Yeah.
Now that I'm older and I can look back, I can see he grew up during the Depression.
Yeah.
That was a tough time.
Oh, yeah.
And he always had a good sense of work ethic. You know, he started at the bottom with the company he worked for I don't know how many years and retired as a vice president
Yeah.
due to his work ethic.
Yeah.
And he was a no-nonsense guy because he had to be. And then he loses his wife when left with 6 kids.
Yeah.
So I
Can't imagine.
Yeah, I can appreciate him more now that I'm older and
Yeah.
I'm more mature. It was difficult living through that. But again, I think, like you said, it helped shape us.
Now, 6 kids.
Mm-hmm.
So brothers, sisters, where did you fall into the mix?
I'm the second youngest of the 6.
Okay.
It was my sister who was actually born 16 years before me. So we have that similar thing where we have a big gap. And then there was my brother, and it seemed like, you know, it was 54, 55, 57, 58, 59.
Yeah.
All of the rest of us came. So I had 3 brothers and 2 sisters. My oldest sister and my youngest brother have passed. You know, my sister was near 80, and she, you know, it wasn't from COVID, but COVID played a part in it.
Yeah.
And then my younger brother had colon cancer.
Yeah.
And he fought it. I mean, he fought it for probably a good 18 months longer than he should have.
Yeah. How did your mom pass again?
She went in for a hysterectomy, I believe it was. And during the surgery, they nicked, and I may not have this completely right medically, but she had diverticulosis or litis, one of those. And during the surgery, they nicked it, and it spread. And, of course, this was in the early 60s, you know, where you can be, it's still serious today, but it's treatable. Back then, they didn't have the resources, the knowledge to treat it. So my whole memory of my mother was basically laying in bed or on the couch with a heating pad on, you know, couldn't really get up and do anything.
Did you grow up wanting to know who your mom was and the kind of lady she was and things like that? Because me personally, even though my dad died at 10, I really lost him at 3 because him and my mom got a divorce. And back then, we didn't have cell phones.
Yeah.
And it was expensive to collect calls.
Right.
And you couldn't go see him anytime you wanted because he was in
Very different,
Illinois and
yeah.
I was down in Florida. So, you know, really, I only had him for, I mean, between 3 and 10 months.
Yeah. See, I feel that my younger brother and I, and maybe even my next older brother, that it might have been just a little bit easier on us than the older siblings, especially my oldest sister, who had known her mother for 19 years.
Yeah. True.
Yeah. So, and I, you know, I'll be honest. I've told this before. There were very dark periods in my life where I questioned God and why did this happen, and you know, why did I even want to be here? You know.
And that's what those kids go through at Valerie's house. And that's why, and I'll remind everybody too that Valerie's house is our local, it's started in Southwest Florida, grieving center that works with kids and families that grieve over the loss of a loved one to help kids like you and I that didn't have that support around kids like-minded peers that are going through what they're going through and that can talk about it in a safe place. Because like you said, growing up, it's not something you really talked about probably with a lot of people, and you were angry and you had that.
Oh, very angry at times.
And me too. I remember some of the things I did as a kid, and I questioned that why, and I'm like going, that's why I am the way I am today.
You know, just seeing a normal, quote, family and knowing that we weren't.
Yeah.
You know, just little things.
Yeah.
You know, family gatherings. You know, there's people hugging all over their mom and the interaction, you know, the neighbors, all of that. You know, one thing that I try to stress to people who have gone through this loss, it's very easy, and I went through this myself, you know, looking back and seeing only one set of footprints, thinking I was alone.
Yeah.
And now that I'm older, I realize I wasn't alone. They weren't my footprints.
Yeah.
They were God's footprints, and
Yeah.
He was carrying me.
Yeah.
And I just didn't know it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah. And there's actually a neat poem out there called "Footprints in the Sand,"
Yeah.
which is just really explains that perfectly.
Yeah. Well, we're honored to have you at Valerie's house. You know that. And, you know, that's the first time I ever heard your story about your mom, is when you came in to visit Valerie's house. Probably one of the first times that when I got involved, we had you come in and you met Angela, our CEO, founder, Angela Melvin. And you told us you lost your mom at 4 years old. And I was like, man, I've known this man most of my life, and I didn't even know that.
You know, it's really funny how it's just like peaks and valleys. You know, sometimes I'm up there and it's like, okay, that happened and life is going on.
Yeah.
And I don't even. I mean, I think about my mother every day, but I
Yeah.
don't really dwell upon the fact that I was robbed of that
Yeah.
relationship. And then there's other times you're in the valley and you just it really pulls at your heart that, you know, like, you know, when Kayla gave birth, you know, thinking, man, wouldn't it have been great
Yeah.
for my mother to be there?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or even when I got elected, or you know, when I got, each time I got promoted at the police department, you know, when I graduated from FGCU, you know, there were moments saying, boy, I wish mom and dad were here.
Yeah. I use the word numbness a lot because I lost him at such an early age. And I had other people also pass away. I remember my grandfather passed away before that, and how I responded to that and how I acted with that. And I remember those little moments. But I've had a lot of other people, friends and people that I cared for, love. And yeah, it was sad, but I was a little numb. I didn't know, you know, even though I was just numb to it. You know, it was almost like.
No, that's a good way of putting it.
I was numb to it
Yeah.
because it was like, I lost my dad at 10, you know?
And now, subsequently, in 2006, lost my father.
Yeah.
He was 88 years old. And he's in the hospital up in Volusia County. And we were able to get, two of my brothers and my sister all to get together and get up there. And we were all able to say to my stepmother, you need to take him off the life support.
Yeah.
He would not want this.
Yeah.
He would not want to be that burden. So it was a very different dynamic.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was more of, all right, Dad, you're getting called home. It's your time.
Yeah.
You know, and it was like we're going to suffer the loss, but in a different way. And that's how I look at death a lot more now when people die. And I mean, every day there are people dying. Don't look at it as a bad thing. It's a good thing.
Yeah.
We grieve, we suffer, but in a lot of cases, like my younger brother, he's no longer in pain.
Yeah.
He's no longer suffering.
Yeah.
My sister had lost her husband, and she was dealing with dementia. So every day she'd start off saying to one of my nephews, "Where's Dad?
Yeah. Where's
your father?" You know, and they have to explain to her. And so, you know, when you look at the quality of life, sometimes you just have to say, this is a good thing.
Like you said, personally, though, too, your mom's with you every day.
Yeah.
And you think about your mom every day. And that's what I always tell people, you know, they never leave us.
Yeah.
They never leave us.
And it's not a matter of waking up until
Yeah.
the time I go to bed. I'm constantly thinking about her.
Yeah. But there's those moments.
But she's there, yeah.
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 Yeah. So Do you think that's really what drew you to Valerie's house?
I was
Is
just
that personal connection and just
I was just so impressed with Angela.
yeah,
To be able to take her grief and turn it into something good.
yeah,
And having lived that loneliness, that pain, that numbness, all of that,
yeah,
to be able to provide some type of relief for these kids who, a lot of them are at an age, well, most of them are at an age where it's very hard to process things
Yeah.
and to understand, why did this happen?
yeah,
And I think the worst thing is to do what I did and turn against God and say, how can there be a God? How
Yeah.
can you let this happen?
yeah,
And so to be able to maybe help these young people who are grieving get through this, to process it and not let it be a negative, but turn it into positive in their life.
yeah. You've been just such a great community leader, because I see you out on the streets and just out there representing not just Valerie's house, but so many others, all of them. There's some of them that you're near and dear to because of your own personal experience or something that's in your heart, that you have a heart for everything. I mean, so that's a given, but
And that could be some days a negative,
Yeah.
because you can overwhelm yourself.
yeah,
Like I said, you could do a whole lot of things mediocre, or you could do a few things very
yeah.
well.
You got to be careful with that. Like my involvement with Valerie's, that's one of the best things, probably one of the best things I've ever been involved with.
But you can't sacrifice your business. You can't sacrifice
Yeah.
your home life.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
got to be that
I
balance.
had to give it back.
Yeah.
I had to give it to,
Yeah.
and that's where I finally made that decision. But I still love being
Yeah.
involved, and I will be involved, and I'll be continue to raise money and all that, and advocate and all that kind of stuff. But we appreciate you being involved. We're looking forward to that.
I'm thrilled.
Yeah, yeah. So we'll run down a bunch of questions real quick. And we probably already touched on this stuff. Mary Anderson, you've had a long career in law enforcement and public service. How has your personal story, particularly the loss of your mother at an age, shaped your approach to leadership?
So, when I look at leadership, I fully recognize that you can learn just as much from the bad leaders as you can the good leaders.
Yeah, yeah,
Because you learn what not to do,
yeah,
how not to handle
Yeah.
that situation, as well as what to do and how to handle
Yeah.
the situation. And so I think that my situation of the way I grew up has helped me be more empathetic
Yeah.
towards people, I guess,
yeah,
to understand that good people do bad things.
yeah,
You don't necessarily have to be a bad person to do something bad.
yeah,
There's a lot of reasons, whether it's just poor decision-making skills or there might be a need. The person shoplifting a piece of meat versus candy or a pack of cigarettes or something like that.
yeah,
Is there a real need that this person is hungry?
yeah,
And this is their final resort to be able to eat,
yeah,
is to have to steal.
yeah,
So, to understand people and having that understanding of people gave me different assignments at the police department, each time giving me new leadership opportunities.
yeah. As the 62nd mayor of Fort Myers, what have been some of the most fulfilling initiatives you've implemented since taking office?
So first of all, I have to say, it's not what because it's not.
Good
they
response.
They say there's no I in team.
I and team.
Okay,
Now Jordan says, well, there's
but it's a me.
yeah, there's an I and win.
yeah. But it's a group.
But that's that competitive nature. That's that leadership. So he wasn't meaning, that he wouldn't be Jordan if he wasn't a good teammate.
Exactly.
He was a great leader.
And so we have to recognize that this is a team effort, a group effort.
Yeah.
Again, as mayor and as the council people, we set policy. And what we do is we surround ourselves with good people who can make those policies happen.
Well, and that goes back to when you first got in, you had to let someone go.
Yeah.
And I remember when that happened, there was a little bit of an uproar. I remember someone calling me and saying, and I was involved with Valerie's house, and he suggested, and he's a good man, but he just, took it personal.
Yep.
And this is wrong. He didn't know you. He didn't know the man. And he said, this is wrong. You've got to back, you and your brother and people have to back. And I'm like going, don't bring politics, especially in with Valerie's house. Do not bring politics in because we will not take a stand with a politician on any matter whatsoever.
Probably can guess who you're talking about. Well, but that's all right. That's neither here nor there.
But I think that's changed now.
Yeah, these things are in the past.
Yeah,
right,
those things are in the past, and now hey, this is what I'm about. This is how I'm going to lead. Just believe me. Just and maybe that person, you just had to make changes, and it's not personal. It was what's best for the city.
And I think people see that now.
Yeah.
And I have to tell you, during that period, I got a lot of phone calls.
Yeah.
And one of them was from Darren.
Yeah.
And he basically, it was a short conversation saying, people calling me saying, I got to do this. And he says, my stance is, Kevin's made a decision. He must have a reason.
Yeah. Very much
and
so.
I appreciate it.
And he told me that too.
Yeah. And I
we
really,
both respect you very much so.
I didn't do it
out
of for personal reasons. It was, and I don't go out there trying to say why I did it, because I told him, I said, I'm not going to speak about this publicly unless you put me in the position to defend my decision.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to ruin your career or your reputation or anything like that. It's just not working. It's time for a change.
Yeah.
And I had a very direct conversation with 3 people. And I told them, I said, when I ran for council, you supported my opponent. And the day after the election, you all called and you apologized. And I said, there's no need to apologize. We all make choices.
Yeah.
I says, that was yesterday. We're not going to undo the past. Let's focus on going forward.
Yeah.
When I primaried for mayor, the same thing happened. I didn't take it personally. No grudges. That's yesterday. We're moving forward.
Yeah.
But I said, if you try to undermine me as mayor, that I'll take personally.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I have a good relationship with all of them now. And I think they've seen that I'm not a loose cannon. I'm not trying to tip over the apple cart. I'm trying to make good changes for the city.
Yeah. You're actively involved with Valerie's House and other community organizations. How does your personal experience influence your advocacy work?
We lived in a 900 square foot house.
Mm-hmm.
My dad built a room in the basement for himself. My sister and her husband and 2 infant children lived in the master bedroom. My 3 brothers and I, and as a realtor, you don't get big rooms in a 900 square foot house.
Yeah.
My 3 brothers and I had 2 bunk beds set up in there.
Yeah.
And then my sister, because my dad was old school, she got a room to herself because boys and girls just didn't share rooms. So I know what it was like to wear hand-me-downs, not to be able to get out in new clothes. My oldest brother and my younger brother, I think, made out because the oldest one, you had to buy new.
Yeah.
All right. And then it got passed down. By the time it got to him, and sometimes me, but by the time it got to him, it's like, oh, we got to get him something.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I understand. Well, I've never really experienced hunger. I've been hungry.
Yeah.
And while I've never experienced true homelessness, I have relied on other people for places to live.
Yeah.
And so I think that gives me a little bit better understanding. And the other thing that helps in being a good advocate is knowing that I was here and I got here to here. Not because I sat there with my hand out.
Yeah.
But I worked.
Yeah.
I took advantage of things. And so as an advocate, I'd like to hope that what I'll be doing or what I am doing is giving people opportunity.
Yeah.
To pull themselves up and make good things happen.
Yeah.
And not to feel like they can't do it without the help of others.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with the help. I'm not saying, but I think, you set up a safety net to help those in need. And unfortunately for some people, it becomes a hammock.
Yeah.
And you can't ever get them out of it.
Yeah.
That's what we don't need.
Yeah.
because we're wasting a lot of resources on that person that doesn't necessarily want to help themselves. And those resources could be going toward helping those who are trying to help themselves.
That's what I talk to people. I mean, like, who inspires you anymore? I mean, that's what we want in politics, someone to inspire us. Not because it's, well, I believe this or I believe that or against one another,
but
who's
because they do
inspiring?
good things.
Yeah, who's inspiring out there?
I'm fortunate enough to know our Congressman, Byron Donalds.
I like him.
Yes.
He seems like a good man.
A lot of respect.
Yeah.
Spencer Roach.
Yeah.
Another, local representative, another person who I love talking with Spencer and hearing his point of view. So there are people out there, but they're not. You don't have the FDRs, the JFKs, the Reagans.
Yeah.
They seem to be gone.
Yeah.
That it's no. If you listen to John F. Kennedy and some of the things he said, it would never fly with the Democrats today.
Yeah.
It would just never fly.
Yeah.
And he talk about someone who really, and Reagan, I think, was the same way, trying to inspire that national pride.
Yeah.
Not to lose that. Because I think when you lose that, then you become vulnerable.
Yeah.
People can come in and change your whole system.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I said this earlier, but no nation ever survived by laying down and letting their enemy walk over them.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's your leadership here in Fort Myers.
And we have to be strong.
As a policeman, too, as a father, all that.
Look, there's nothing wrong with me saying Fort Myers is a great city and we're going to make it even greater.
Yeah.
Everybody, we all should have pride in our city and our state and our country.
Yeah. Politics can often be divisive with tough decisions that may not please everyone. How do you navigate these challenges while staying true to your values?
You got to believe in what you're doing is right.
Yep.
And be willing to defend it. I take phone calls from people and say, why did you support that? Or why didn't you support that? Blah, blah, blah. And I tell them why. And sometimes they say, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Sometimes they say, well, I disagree, but I appreciate you sharing that with me. And I've learned that a lot of times, you get somebody who's angry, just let them vent.
Yeah.
Let them get it off their chest. And once they know they've been heard, they may not want an answer. As long as they know they've been heard. Yeah.
Yeah.
And as a local at this level, that should not be an issue for us.
Yeah.
We should want to have that contact.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
Fort Myers is growing rapidly. How do you balance the city's development with preserving its unique character and history?
So that becomes a challenge at times. We all know there's a housing issue going on. They estimate 78 people a day moving to Lee County. Sadly, it's both good and it's fortunate and unfortunate that a lot of people that are moving to this area are selling homes with a tremendous amount of equity. And they're coming from a market that's much higher than our market. Mm-hmm. Even though our market's high, theirs is much higher. And they're able to come down and make cash offers. And if they get in a bidding war, they're in a position to really outbid people.
Yeah.
And so that's compressing everything, and it's hurting the workforce especially.
Yeah.
We have to be smart with how we address this. We have right now somewhere around 10,000, 11,000 residential units in the pipeline. It takes time. You don't build a house overnight.
Yeah.
Couple things that we're doing as a city. We're trying to work with developers. You put up an apartment complex, we got to have a percent of it being workforce or lower.
Yeah.
We need these people. We need our nurses, our teachers, our EMS, our firefighters, our police, the people who work on the lines, the power lines. We need people in our restaurants.
Yeah.
The cooks, the dishwashers.
Yeah.
They have to be able to live.
A lot of those people have to go further out now. And they're not, because of the prices have got and the cost of ownership, all that.
And so while they're further out and maybe their housing costs are a little bit more manageable, whatever they're saving, they're probably spending that and more in their transportation costs and their quality of life.
Yeah.
Because now you're taking an hour to get to work.
Yeah.
And heavy traffic. So, we're trying to do that, work with developers. We implemented the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. Now, this is something that was moving along slow. And after I got in, I said to the city attorney, get this ordinance drafted.
Yeah.
And he'll tell you.
Yeah.
I pushed him hard. Get this thing so we can get it, and we tweaked it. So now we have rental assistance for people, down payment assistance if you qualify. We can't be everything to everybody.
Yeah.
People need to understand that. But the one I like is the city manager and I were out driving around looking at some of the lots that the city owns, residential lots. Most of these we get people give them to us because they've got so many code enforcement fines that it's here, just take it, wipe it clean.
Yeah.
And I said to him, why can't we, the city, build a house and sell it for cost?
Yeah.
And he says, we can.
Yeah.
And we put together this program. Our first house is nearing completion. I'm a little dissatisfied with the cost. It's about a little over 1,400 square feet, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1-car garage. $245 is what it's costing us to build. It's doable for a lot of people. You get two workforce type incomes, you can make that work.
Yeah.
Chances are their mortgage will be less than their rent.
Yeah.
But we wanted it to be lower. We really wanted it to be attainable for people. Understanding that, one, we have to build a quality product because we don't want something that's falling apart in 7 years.
Yeah.
No, we want something they can be proud of for a long time.
Who helps you with those kind of homes?
We put it out to bid.
Okay, so it's not one of your big builders, one of your big developers like Lennar, DR. Horton.
No.
Yeah.
And your brother and I have had this conversation.
And that's purchasing power right there.
And that's
a give back too, and that's all that.
Right. He has made some things available. Unfortunately, the people who bid, and I'll be honest, we were trying to attract minority contractors. And so hard hats. I don't know if you're familiar with them.
No.
Yeah, local minority business, and they're doing our first one. We are looking at ways to reduce the cost. Now, here's what's really great. A majority of these lots are in what they call an MMCT, Minority Majority Census Tract.
Yeah.
So banks, I know Region is one of them because we're working with them, they will finance up to 97%. They will offer up to $10,000 in down payment assistance, and they will shave a point off the interest rate. All those things help.
Oh, yeah, very much so.
Yeah. So our goal is to try and be able to build a house for under $200,000.
Yeah.
A quality house. And we're going to, over the next several years, we'll probably have up to 50 lots that we wind up having.
Yeah.
And our goal is to try and do at least 6 homes a year.
That's great.
Hey, it's only 6 homes, but they were 6 homes that did not exist.
Yeah.
And hopefully we're going to have 6 families who are now in their own home because of this.
Helping them.
Yeah. Here's the thing. There's an old saying, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
Yeah.
You can't swallow the thing whole.
Yeah.
All right? We can't solve homelessness like that or the housing problem like that.
Yeah.
You got to chip away.
Yeah.
And then eventually you're saying, wow, look at the progress we've made.
Yeah. With your background in both law enforcement and business, how do you approach economic development and public safety in Fort Myers?
First, I'll address public safety. At one time, Fort Myers was the 17th most dangerous city of our size in the country. We are now the 3rd safest. And it came with an investment in technology and with human resources. We've invested in cameras, a real-time crime center. We've got a thing called ShotSpotter, which towers have been put up in neighborhoods that are prone to gunshots.
Yeah.
And so in the past, we'd have to wait for someone to call and say, hey, there's gunshots over in this area.
Yeah.
What happens now is these towers triangulate almost the exact location. Within 30 seconds, it's getting dispatched to the police computers in the cars and to the officers' cell phones.
Yeah.
So they're responding immediately. within a minute, they're on their way.
Yeah.
And they've made some tremendous arrests. And so violent crime in the city has really dropped.
Yeah. I feel pretty safe in our city. I feel pretty safe here in Southwest Florida. You know, between the police department and the sheriff's department, I think both of them, you've got two pretty good leaders there that,
and that's one important component for economic development. The goal is, let's make our city attractive. Let's get a reputation of being a vibrant, active, great place to work, to conduct business, to raise a family, to live.
Yeah.
And so law enforcement, public safety is one of those. The green space, as we talked about earlier, that's another component.
Yeah.
So that's why we're very big on this.
I like the green space. I like the
making the city more attractive. So we're trying to focus on those corridors that have been neglected over the years and get them cleaned up. The 22-23 budget year, we had budgeted $2.5 million to come out of the reserves to balance the general revenue. Not only did we not, and this is coming off a hurricane now.
Yeah.
Not only did we not use that 2.5, we saved another 7.5. And you know why? Because we have a city manager who has got all of his directors squeezing every nickel out of every dollar they can.
Yeah.
And they tell me all the time, they say, man, I go into him with this deal, and he'll say, I think it's great. He'll say, not good enough.
Yeah.
Get back.
Yeah.
And they all say the same thing. Next time I'm buying a car, I'm taking him with me.
Yeah, I've heard that about him.
Yeah.
He's not just spending money.
No.
He's not spending money at all.
So with this $10
Not
million,
that he's not spending money at all, but he's being very cautious with our money.
He's spending it the right way, where it needs to be spent.
Yeah.
And so with this $10 million, at a council workshop, he said, okay, look, good news, save this money. Some of them are saying, well, let's put it toward our debt. Let's do this. And he says, those are all good things to do. But I'll tell you, those are things that the public won't necessarily see or understand.
Yeah.
What I would suggest is you consider using this toward resurfacing roads and picking up litter.
Yeah.
And that's what we've done. We've picked up several tons of litter since the beginning of this year, and we've resurfaced, I think, 80-some miles of roadway.
Yeah.
Those are things you, the resident, you drive down a road that's recently resurfaced and say, wow, this is a lot smoother than it used to be. When you drive through areas and say, wow, the trash isn't as prevalent.
Yeah.
Now, I wish we could get people not to throw the trash out.
Yeah.
That would work a lot nicer, bro. But we invest in this like big vacuum cleaner.
Yeah.
Man, they just sweep neighborhoods and pick up a lot of trash.
That's great.
So those are good things.
Yeah.
And all of those lead toward economic development. And what we need to realize, those people who say we don't need any more development, well, you can't stop people from moving here. We're an attractive place.
Yeah.
We're going to become more attractive. What we need to do is attract businesses that have higher than normal paying jobs. And people need to understand, majority of businesses in our area are small businesses. They're not the big box stores.
Yeah.
And, business, not only does business provide a product or a service, but they employ people.
Yeah.
And they pay taxes.
Yeah.
So economic development is good for a community.
Yeah.
Especially if it's done right.
Yeah. I believe that too. I think the parks thing, I've always thought that with our parks, man, I wish our parks were better. You go to some of these cities and this is why this town is, or this city, and I know we've been doing so much and we've done so much down there in downtown and in other areas in the city that, and there have been huge improvements.
So we, like I said, in 08, 09, city had a cutback.
Yeah.
Do you know our millage rate was over 8.8 at one time? Do you know what's going to be set at this year? Well, the not to exceed is already set at 6.5.
Yeah.
And it may come down even more.
That's great.
Yeah. So we're managing the dollars better.
Yeah. That's good.
And that's important to the homeowners because, my first year as mayor, we did a rollback. Everybody likes to say, "Oh, we lowered taxes because we lowered the millage rate."
Yeah.
If your property value went up, you're still paying more in taxes. Yeah. And the other thing that's confusing to some people is they look at the complete tax bill.
Yeah.
which has your county taxes, all these different districts. You know, there's even one, mosquito control on, on and on and on. If they really can focus on the city taxes, they'll see that the city taxes are lower than they really think.
Yeah.
They look at the complete tax package and the taxes in the city are high.
Yeah.
But we are determined. This is the 10th year, I think, of lowering the millage, and we are committed to continue to do that.
And again, all during this time of COVID and the storm and a lot of big things that have happened in here.
It's how you manage things and setting priorities.
Yeah.
And that's where we failed in the past, I think. And I'm not saying this to speak negatively about anybody in past administrations. As we know, hindsight is 20/20. I could tell you, I hope that down the road when someone takes office after me, they're not saying, oh man, this guy he put us in a position for all this trouble. No, I'm hoping they're going to say, boy, he positioned this city to be doing good now.
Can you share a bit about your involvement with the Florida League of Mayors and how that experience has impacted your work locally? That's a big deal, isn't it?
Yes. So about 2 years ago, I actually joined the board of directors. We talked about mentors earlier. So we kind of mentor each other in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
You're having an issue, you can pick up a phone and call another mayor and say, hey, I remember you guys dealt with a similar issue. You got any advice? So it's a good networking and a good sense of good resources available. And, there's so many great mayors across the state. There's 411 mayors, I think.
Yeah.
Now, this past year, I actually ran for president-elect and lost by a few votes, which if you watch the history of that, very few people step up and, it usually takes 2 or 3 tries.
Yeah.
And so as president-elect, what that would have done, it would have positioned me for the 25, 26 year. It would have put me as president of the Florida League of Cities. And at the same time, Holly Smith from Sanibel, she'll be the president of the Florida League of Cities.
Okay.
So I was kind of excited, hoping that, boy, we could really help make some good changes.
Yeah.
But it allows me greater access to hear what other cities are doing.
Yeah.
And we can always learn from each other.
Yeah. Looking ahead, what are your primary goals for Fort Myers, and how do you plan to continue making a positive impact in the community? And we've touched, this whole conversation has been based on this.
So the Tuesday morning after a city council meeting, and they don't always go the way I would like, but Tuesday morning I usually wake up, and this is a line from Reagan. Reagan used to say, it's morning in America. Well, Tuesday morning I wake up and say, it's morning in Fort Myers.
Yeah.
It's a new day. We're going to keep pushing forward. So what I envision our city becoming, to continue, I should say, because we're already a fast-growing area, but to be able to attract good businesses, which helps improve the quality of life in our city. We want to be that city that's, as I said earlier, attractive.
Yeah.
A good place to live, to work, to raise your kids, to play. We want it to be a city that when people come and visit, say, wow.
Yeah.
I wish our city was like that.
Yeah. Well, and I think we've
We've
all
come a long
the
way,
making of.
See, you and I can remember what downtown was.
Oh, yeah.
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 And as a young police officer in 1980, as police, we didn't like going downtown after dark because there was nothing except, you had the one Mexican restaurant and a bunch of derelicts, it seemed like, hanging out downtown.
Yeah, I don't remember downtown at all back then.
Now?
Yeah.
Man, I'm living right in the middle of it.
Yeah.
It's vibrant. It's active. 7 nights a week, 7 days a week. There's activity going on there. Is it slow right now due the summer? Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Is it slower than businesses would like? Yes. One thing I think that's made it difficult, though, is we had COVID. And when we opened up, You know, Florida was only closed for about 3 months.
Yeah.
And so when we opened up, there were people coming here because Florida was open.
Yeah.
And then we did very well coming out of the hurricane because so many businesses were lost or destroyed on the beach and islands. They were coming to downtown. So it's very hard to say, oh, our numbers are so down compared to last year. I think to really have a true comparison, you have to look at 2019, pre-COVID. But we're still doing good. I mean, even last night, Chris and I forget where we were coming from, or Saturday night. Anyway, one of these nights, we're saying, no, look at this place.
Yeah.
People say, no one's coming downtown. There's no place to park. There's people. There's activity. They are coming downtown.
Yeah.
Now, the bridge didn't help, shutting down the bridge. But I think that was a great call. I supported Florida Department of Transportation on that. We're going to appreciate when that bridge is done.
You're going to have to do it sometime.
Yeah.
Well,
look, when they called me and they said, we're going to have some lane closures on the bridge for extended periods of time. And what? And they said, well, we're putting this pedestrian bridge. Why? Well, I finally realized that. Do you remember when you left Fort Myers going to Naples? You knew when you left Fort Myers. You knew when you hit Naples because it was basically, you had San Carlos Park and you had that Nicola's liquor store out in the middle of nowhere. But you knew. Now you're pretty well solid all the way there. Well, guess what? 5-10 years is going to be just like that going to Punta Gorda.
Yeah.
And we're going to appreciate the fact that we have that pedestrian bridge. And if we were to wait to do it when it was absolutely necessary, it would have cost much more. It was done with ARPA dollars, the American Rescue Plan Act. Now, I find it ironic. Oh, well, it's federal dollars. Well, where do you think the federal government gets those dollars from?
Yeah.
You and I.
Yeah.
So it's still our tax dollars.
Still our tax dollars.
But nonetheless, we're not footing the entire bill.
Yeah.
It's coming from all over the country.
Yeah.
So I think it was wise. It was very unsafe up there for the workers. And FDOT said if we can close the bridge for 10 weeks, the last day of school the day after school ends, and we'll open up the day before school starts. And we'll get as much work as we can, and we will shave at least a year off the length of this project. So I think when that bridge finally is done, probably the end of the year, beginning of next year, they're going to appreciate the fact that it's not going to drag on for another year.
Well, and you're getting that done before some of those other improvements that you're planning, like the marina and things like that. Mm-hmm. I mean,
right, exactly.
You can't get them all at the same time.
No.
Or after, when we've got a mess.
And it is unfortunate that we had planned to do McGregor Boulevard in front of the Edison home, finish that last piece of drainage. I just, on my walk this morning, I actually walked there to see how it's coming, and the bricks are almost completely laid, so that's ahead of target. And it hasn't been that bad.
Yeah.
The first week when they closed the bridge down, took people some time to figure out how to get to where.
Yeah.
And, I encourage people, adjust your travel time. If you don't have to be in the office at 8 o'clock, if you can be there at 7 or you could be there at 9, adjust.
And if you can get ahead of this stuff before it becomes a real problem.
Yeah.
Because, our infrastructure is going to be changing over the years because we got more and more people coming here. These roads are not getting thinner. They're getting busier.
And kudos to FDOT for the work they're doing out there at Colonial I-75.
Yeah.
It's been a nightmare. Once it's done, there's actually a county project and 3 state projects going on that's really going to enhance the flow and safety of traffic out there. A lot of people don't understand the Converging Diamond intersection is not necessarily, it does help the flow of traffic, but what it does is it eliminates left turns. And left turns are where some serious accidents happen where people get broadside.
Yeah.
And so, it makes that stretch safer.
Yeah.
They're going to be starting that same project at Daniels in I-75.
Needs it.
It does. And people
Daniels
will complain.
Is a mess.
People will complain. And it's like roundabouts. Oh, my God, they're so confusing.
Yeah.
What is confusing about merging or yielding,
Yeah. It's funny.
Yeah. Now, I'll tell you what. In England and Ireland, and we hit roundabouts all over the
Yeah.
place.
Yeah.
They're very common,
Yeah.
and they work. Now, I'm glad I wasn't driving.
It's a little bit different way of driving over there.
Yeah. And you
And
know,
their roads aren't very wide.
no, but they seem to be very polite.
Yeah.
And you know, if you pull over, gotta get my hands on it. If you pull over, this car passing usually will toot the horn or wave saying
Yeah.
thank you.
We do that here.
Yeah.
It's just not a wave.
I always thought they were telling me I was number one, but my wife said, no, that's the wrong finger, honey.
Kevin, it's been a pleasure having you come in to Let's Talk Southwest Florida. And there's no better way to start this off than our mayor,
Yeah.
Kevin Anderson. And I hope you stay on in politics for a little bit longer, the mayor. I'll be there to support you and keep giving back to the community like you've always done. You're a good man.
Well, thanks. And I'll tell you, I always love taking advantage to be able to talk a little bit about our city and how far we've come and where we're going. And,
I've seen your schedule.
yeah.
It's for you to take time on Labor Day to do this. Thank you.
No
And it's
such,
not just because we're friends, but that's what you do for the community. You always give back. Just like you said, you're a mayor of the community. You're out there and about. You're wearing your Mayor Anderson shirt for a reason, because you're approachable, because you're there serving our community.
and I'm heading to a Labor Day picnic for the union.
You better get back. We're probably at lunchtime now.
No, we're good.
I appreciate it.
All right, Mike.
Thank you. Thank you.